A very good noon to all of you. On the fourth day of presentation in paper number 109, Literary Theory and Indian Literary Criticism and Indian Aesthetics, my today's topic for presentation is use of figurative language in Robert Froud's poem The Road Not Taken. This is my personal information. These are some major and important points which I am gonna discuss about introduction about I.A. Richards, definition and function of figurative language, use of figurative language in the poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, and conclusion. So let's begin with an introduction. Poetry is characterized by many critics, but the most significant is its language, which is artificial and essentially different language from the common everyday language that people speak. The poet is permitted with a special kind of liberty in using the language to convey his message. The poet may go beyond the limits of the language by using the idea to communicate new areas of experience. It gives the poet a new chance to twist and wrest the language on the basis of poet's need in using the figurative language. A figure of speech in poetry is not a mere decorative part and a pretty and fancy way of saying something which might be said literally. So here we can understand that poetry is a genre which is characterized by many critics. But the most important and significant aspects of poetry is its language. And the poet is permitted with a special kind of liberty, or we can say freedom, in using the language the way he wants to convey the message through his poem. About I.A. Richards, British poet and scholar Ivor Armstrong, here is a mistake. Richards was born in the year 1983. He educated at Cambridge University, Macdonald's College. His scholarship and research on how students read poetry helped a lot in shaping the foundation of new criticism and its emphasis on close reading. With C.K. Ogden, Richards created the English tool of Basic English, a simplified version of the English language that in the interest of clear expression. Richards' scholarly work includes the practical criticism in the year 1929, the philosophy of rhetoric in 1936, and the meaning of meaning in 1946. So here are the three scholarly major works by I.A. Richards, and that three major works played a very vital role in shaping the new modern criticism. In his own poetry, Richard wove philosophical argument with musical turns. Critic Helen Wendler describes his own poetry as gnarled, intellectual, angular, and unsparing. I.A. Richards was regarded as the important psychological critic who has studied poetry methodically. His principal works his principal critical works, as we have seen in the earlier slides, have given a new dimension to modern criticism. I.A. Richards is not merely learned and conceptual, but also iconoclastic and innovative. So here in this slide, we get an idea about how I.A. Richards studied poetry through the vast reading. He was a man of very vast reading, and he studied poetry very deeply and methodically. And his three scholarly major works also given a new dimension and new insight to the modern criticism. Critic Helen Wendler describes his own poetry as gnarled, means something very rough, or we can say not easy to understand. Angular means the poetry which has shown so many shapes and curves. I mean, we cannot get idea very easily, but there are so many shapes in the poetry. That is the meaning of angular. And unsparing means merciless, we can say that. But still people wants to read the poetry because it is intellectual. So that is how we can understand about the concept of I.A. Richards in modern criticism. Definitions of figurative language. Figurative language uses words or expression with a meaning that is different from the literal interpretations. Figurative language is a language that is used by imaginative and not literary because the use of the words diverging from its usual meaning. Figure of speech introduces an ambiguity between literal and figurative interpretations. Ambiguity means very kind of blur. So, in figure of speech, whenever we are discussing about figures of speech, there is a very kind of ambiguous or ambiguity between literal or figurative interpretations. In one article, Queen stated that the simplest definitions of a figure of speech is an intended deviation from ordinary usage. Carafe also declared that figure of speech has function to explain, strengthen a live, stimulate, decorate an object. It gave beneficial for the teachers and students for focusing on figurative language in the classroom. So here we can understand about the definitions of figurative language and how other critics also reflect their ideas on the figure of speech. What is the function of criticism? The function of figurative language is to stimulate a certain image. It affects the language beauty of work in both oral and written communication. Lazar declared that figurative language can provide a useful springboard for integrated skills like reading, speaking, and writing. So, that is how figurative language also helps us in developing or integrating our skills like reading, speaking, and writing. Use of figurative language in the poem The Road Not Taken. The first one is symbolism. One dominant and symbolic term used in the poem is road. In the poem, it refers to the decision that the speaker made in his life. It likewise refers to us also. In every decision we make, we reject the other choice and lose our chance to see what it may offer. The decision we make contributes to what we are. In the poem The Road Not Taken, the speaker is in dilemma that on which path or on which path he wants to go. And we can relate this symbol with human life also, that we sometimes also confused between the choices that we have to make, and the decisions we make contributes to what we are. Lines from the poem: and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. In these two lines, the road is used as a metaphor for the future life. The traveler tries to look into his future, but it was not possible for him to predict the consequences of his choice. That in the poem, if the speaker if the speaker will decide that I want to follow this particular path, but somehow he was not ready to predict the consequences, that if I will follow this path, then what will be the consequences I have to face after this. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. There is an there is an affirmation of one road being traveled less, which was taken by the traveler, and that choice of road has changed his life. Second one is rhyme, form, and meter. The poem consists of four stanzas, and each stanza is composed of 5 lines. These are called quintains. Each quintain follows ABAAB rhyming scheme, as is illustrated in the first stanza. So here I have taken the lines from the poem, the first stanza, in which you can see the rhyming pattern of the poem. Setting. The poem used the forest as its setting. The plot of the poem starts with the speaker having contact with nature as he wanders in the yellow woods. It is in this travel when he finds two diverged roads. So, in the poem, Robert Frost, as we have studied also, that Robert Frost was a realistic and nature poet, and that's why in this particular poem he depicts so many natural elements, like using the words yellow woods and two diverged roads. The setting describes the overall effect of the speaker's difficulty in making one big life changing decision his life. That the speaker is in dilemma that on which path he wants to go further, and that is the life changing decision in his life. Continue with this sound. Like the speaker who walks slowly by the woods, then stopping and contemplating which path to take. We feel the same experiences as suggested by the rhythm of the poem. The speaker is unsure which way to go. He wants to be different by the choices he makes. The problem is that upon examination of the two paths, the speaker discovers that both roads appear about the same, which complicates the speaker's decision making. I would like to conclude my presentation with the following points that the road not taken can be very well understood from the vantage point of view of new criticism. New critics focused on the variety and degree on certain literary devices, specifically metaphor, irony, symbolism, tone, or the sound of the poem. The new critics emphasized close reading as a way to engage with the text and also paid close attention to the interactions between form and meaning. So, as we have studied in the new criticism, that the author's point of view and biography are not that much important elements, but rather than it requires close reading to the interactions between the form and meaning, and that is the I.A. Richards want to convey us through the figurative language of in new criticism. This is the response which I get from ChatGPT. And when I asked about my topic to ChatGPT, I received a very reliable, or we can say authentic response, because it gave very descriptive about that how figurative language can be used in the poem, and it gives so many points. So that is how ChatGPT helped me in this way. These are my work citations, and now I am open for questions.
Also have to see in the morning also nobody has done how to cite ChatGPT. You take him that you have to cite that also. So how will you cite? So you ask ChatGPT on that how to cite ChatGPT, generate a response and see what you are getting. Whether it is with C or what. Where will it go alphabetically?
Method, how does figurative language impacts on the reader?
Okay, figurative language impact the reader in the way that they can understand about the not only about the biography or the other elements in the poem, but in the new criticism we have to think in a different way. That is why I.A. Richards implied figurative language in this poem, and through figurative language, reader can also enhance their knowledge in about the other like metaphors, symbolism in the poem, and that is why figurative language impact the reader through the reading of poetry in a vast and vantage point of view.
Heather, as you mentioned in your slides that I.A. Richards was regarded as the important psychological critic. So, what is this different view on poetry?
Okay, so as I mentioned in my slide, that I.A. Richards was a man of very vast reading, and he think very differently about the concept of new criticism and poetry, and he also referred as an important psychological critic through his point of views, and his views on new criticism and figurative language. It shaped also other students in enhance their knowledge about the new criticism. So that is why I.A. Richards regarded as a very modifying modifying critic in the new criticism. Okay, thank you.